On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, growing an idea into a successful business, how to overcome naysayers, featuring guest BE Alink of the Alinker with Toni Desrosiers and Brianne Miller. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
Many new businesses are often graced by a legacy of family entrepreneurship, a fabulous mentor, or friends and family that believe in you almost as much as they believe in your idea. Welcome. Growing an idea into a successful business faces multiple challenges. The stats of success rates for new businesses is not high. More fail than succeed. They fail for myriad reasons. But every once in a while, one succeeds in spite of those around them that are saying, that'll never work. How often do you hear about someone retailing a product, but really serving a social purpose? Let's introduce you to a business owner motivated by creating access to community.
The Alinker is a three-wheeled walking bike with two wheels of 16-inch in the front, overarching to a rear wheel in the back with a seating assembly on top and with a steering in the front. And it's Ackerman steering, it's nice and comfortable. When you sit on the Alinker, you still stand, so you actually can walk on wheels. In October 2011, my mom and I were walking over the marketplace in the Netherlands, and we were passing by some people that were using walkers and rollators and scooters and stuff. Somewhere out of the blue, she said, "Over my dead body will I ever use one of those things." And what happened with that comment is not so much like, oh, my mom needs something, but more like the awareness that medical devices emphasize the disability. What I got away with that is like, why do medical devices emphasize the disability if that creates a social divide between people with and without disabilities? So when I started designing the Alinker, I did not try to come up with the next walking device for my mom that my mom would use, but for something that is so cool that people would love to use it. And I found Toby here in Vancouver, Toby Cycle Works. And Toby is a nutcase who does crazy stuff with bikes. Perfect for me because that's exactly what I needed. And somewhere along the process, I had to quit my job because I needed more money and more time. So I started to incorporate in August 2012 and found some angel investors. I started in the Netherlands because I'm from the Netherlands originally, and I know the bike world, and I also know that Dutch people are really stubborn. So if it works in the Netherlands, it probably works everywhere. Through a contact that I had in the Netherlands with an engineering biking company that made the engineering pre-production prototypes. With that crowdfunding campaign, we did a whole spring tour. So picking the big cities in the Netherlands and just going around on a marketplace and getting people to like, oh, what is that? People with spina bifida, with MS, with Parkinson's are using the Alinker, but their illness doesn't define them. What defines them is that they see themselves as active human beings and look for something that allows them to continue to be who they are, not what they have.
When we come back, we'll have BE Alink in studio with us.
I didn't have the time anymore to do my job, so I had to quit my job and get investors.
Welcome back. We're now joined by BE Alink, inventor of the Alinker. BE, I understand that the genesis of your product comes from a discussion with your mom. Would you like to share a bit of that story?
Sure, and thanks for having me here. One day, back in 2011 or something, I walked on a plane in the Netherlands with my mom, and we passed by some people on scooters and rollators, and completely out of the blue she said, "Over my dead body will I ever use one of those things." And that comment made me realize that medical devices are designed for us as a body with a problem and emphasize the disability. And I thought, how silly is that? It creates a social divide. And then I set out to design something different and cool and cooler, so cool that you want to use it, and so cool that it overcomes the social divide between people with and without disabilities.
That's powerful stuff. For new business ideas, founders want to change the way that things are done. Let's hear what Brianne Miller has to say.
I think for us, new business ideas often come down to founders that are really wanting to change the way that things are done. They're often trying to solve a problem or a pain point that they're facing in their own lives. And I think for us, we took quite a systematic approach to this. So we did start really small. So we worked with the idea of an MVP, or a minimum viable product concept, and really wanted to test it out before diving in. So for us, our MVP was a really small pop-up shop. It was essentially the smallest version of like a retail or a grocery store that we can conceive. I think the very first one, we spent less than $100 on inventory, had a couple jars and a few friends, and set up shop in a Patagonia store and talked to customers all day. And yeah, it went really well. We continued to do that. We spent a lot of time learning from people. So for us, learning about what products people wanted to see, where they were coming from, what sort of containers they were bringing, and all of these things that ultimately fed into the design of our store. So we did take a pretty systematic approach, but ultimately I think a lot of it really comes down to education. With NADA, that is a huge amount of what we do, especially on the supply chain transparency side of things. We do a lot of storytelling, sharing the stories of our suppliers and why it's so important to understand where our food comes from and why. And we hope that that inspires people to change the way that they shop.
At BE, you built a product, brand new, no one ever had seen it before, okay? Now, Brianne talks about testing your market, okay? How did you go about test marketing your product?
I just let people try the prototypes. I built 7 conceptual prototypes and 7 pre-production prototypes. And with the conceptual prototypes, I had various people try, and they educated me about what it was and what it meant for them. Like, for example, I had Tom, who was early 80s, and he got on prototype number 1 and he flipped his cap around and he was like, wow, and he started running. And I was like, huh, if a guy of 80 something can run again. He said, I haven't run in 20 years, but I can run.
Do we want to talk about engineers?
Oh, I generally don't, but investors apparently want, because I've had numerous times investors or potential investors tell me, like, you should hire a real engineer to work with. What? I built this, we did this, I've got a team of people that I work with. Why would I, am I not good enough as a female engineer to do this? So you get a lot of those comments.
How did you go about raising capital to get your idea to life?
When I started with the prototyping, and at a certain time I had to incorporate because I didn't have the time anymore to do my job, so I had to quit my job and get investors. And I thought, I don't know anything about business, and I don't even know what a share in a company is, so maybe I need to start learning something. So I started seeking out meetups and that sort of gatherings that are about entrepreneurs and business, and started learning. And then in one of the meetups, there was a guy, at that particular meetup, you had to stand up 30 seconds and quickly introduce yourself, everybody in the room. And then this guy says to me, he said, I know somebody who you should meet. He would be the perfect investor for you. And I was like, okay. I met him, and he brought 3 associates in, and they were the first investors. And the first one said to me, I can be your mentor.
Wow.
And I was like, brilliant, please.
So can we talk about building trust with investors and maybe business partners?
Everything is built on relationship. And so you need to get to know each other. And you hear very often that people say, like, oh, we're aligned in values. Did you check that? And because it takes a while before you check whether you're really aligned. People talk easy, but it's really work of very consciously building a relationship together to meet and to explore if we're actually the right partners. So things take time. And that's been the core of my business. I build partnerships, I build relationships. And then after a while you say either like, let's go on, or we have to abort because it's not aligned. We're not talking about the same stuff here.
The power of building mutual relationships. We'll be right back.
People choose their comfort. They're uncomfortable talking about death, and they choose their comfort over showing up for a family.
Welcome back. I understand your dad and your grandmother were great influencers in your life.
Yes, I come from, like everybody probably says that, from quite a weird family, but certainly my dad, as he passed when I was 8, had a huge effect by his death, by the virtue of his death, on my life, because when he died, people started disappearing around us. And as an 8-year-old girl, I thought, like, how strange, because you would expect people to show up. We just lost our father, and my mom, her husband. She was 35, we were 6, 8, and 11, and people disappeared. And I understood as a girl that people choose their comfort. They're uncomfortable talking about death, and they choose their comfort over showing up for a family. That taught me about everything I needed to know about the Alinker, because disabilities also make people uncomfortable. So they'd rather just disappear than show up for you.
What a powerful lesson for an 8-year-old.
Right?
And we hear that negative energy is corrosive. And something that doesn't get enough attention is dealing with the naysayers in life. Okay? So let's see what Toni Desrosiers has to say.
In the early days of Abeego, I faced hundreds of naysayers. I invented beeswax food wrap. I am directly challenging plastic wrap and everything we know about plastic wrap. Overcoming naysayers came with understanding that most of the people that are your naysayers fall into 2 categories. Category 1, your friends and family. Category 2, professionals that are like usually quite risk adverse. Your naysayers are ultimately trying to protect you. They think they're keeping you safe. They think that if they tell you not to move forward, you won't experience failure and they don't have to watch you fail. And I think understanding that is what allowed me to kind of like set them off to the side and move forward.
So throughout your journey, okay, were there people around you that said, hey, that'll never work?
Yep, absolutely. People don't see it. It's difficult to build a company based on a vision, because people have a problem envisioning something. We live in a society that imagining and dreaming is disruptive. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. He was disruptive. Imagine from John Lennon, that was like opening a different world. Imagining and dreaming is where the power is, where you can design something, to imagine it and work your way towards that. That's also attractive, to create a dream and an imagination. It's like people can now see it with you. But the seers are not, like, we're not used to being drawn into an imagination or a dream. We're stuck in, like, trying to fix problems. What I said earlier, they're not problems. They're symptoms of that system that wants to keep us down and small. So naysayers, they live in their own world. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'd rather live there, so I'm gonna go there.
So B, I understand that you had a pretty special mentorship early on. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely, yes, because that changed my life. So starting as an entrepreneur, I was constantly in scarcity. You don't have money, you don't have enough time, all that stuff. And all the investors that I went to were generally guys in a boardroom telling you, like, we want you to suffer a little bit harder, bootstrap harder, because the risk for us is too big. That's what you meet when you're a very early company with a complicated product, like an actual product that is not cheap and stuff. So one day I met Vicky Saunders, and Vicky Saunders is the founder of CEO. And it was at a little event. Vicky was just starting with CEO. And she said, why don't you do a 30-second pitch? And I was like, pitching? I don't even have a product yet. That was before I got to the market. And then, so a little bit about CEO maybe is it's a network based on women funding women, based on radical generosity. We're not transactional beings, we're relational beings. And there is, from all the VC money, goes less than 3% to women-owned businesses. We're not a minority. And Vicky was like, that is insane, less than 3%, and even in the pandemic it gone down. Never mind black women-owned companies or indigenous, they're not even on the statistics. And Vicky was like, that needs to change. So every year she has a whole hundreds of people that become activators, and then you can apply it as a venture. And I was selected in the second year to be one of the ventures.
So even at this stage of your career, are there still people that are saying, hey, this won't work?
Oh, absolutely. And the more I become visible as a non-medical device, promoting health care that actually promotes our wellness, the more people start being noisy about, like, what are you doing? That ain't working. Like, you need to go through insurance companies. You need to be a medical device. Like, no, actually, the opposite.
When we come back, we'll hear more about Bee's journey.
Selma Blair had just posted herself on an Alinker on her Instagram with some 2 million followers.
Welcome back. Now, Bee, there are two items that I just have to cover with you, okay? The first is the Hollywood connection. You want to tell us a bit about that?
Oh my goodness, yes. One day, Selma Blair, who I needed to look up who that was, no, my phone went off. Cling, 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 cling. And I was like, what is going on? Selma Blair had just posted herself on an Alinker on her Instagram with some 2 million followers. I was like, who is Selma Blair? Maybe I need to look that up, because this is something, like, it exploded. And so I looked up who she was, and then we later got in contact with each other, and now we're really good friends because she's real, I'm real, and then we have a very, just a nice friendship. And her following, I mean, she's got MS, as you know, so her following is from Hollywood movie star fans migrated to people that have MS and are inspired by how she continues to be herself and not be the person who has MS. Like, she doesn't identify with, I have MS.
Now, there's one other element that I wanted to talk to you about, and that's crowdfunding versus donating the Alinker, and the importance of getting your story out there.
Yeah, when Selma and I started talking, she wanted to donate Alinkers because she says, like, this thing is a game changer, and I want everybody to have it, even understanding that people don't have the money often. So she wanted to donate them, and I said to Selma, like, maybe there's another way. Maybe we can, I already had an integrated crowdfunding platform on our website for people to allow to share their stories. What happens with you once you get a diagnosis of MS? And then they did a crowdfunding campaign, and then people can show up in generosity, making sure that that person gets the Alinker. They don't deal with money on a crowdfunding campaign, because if you're on disability, you can't receive money. It will be penalized. So the whole thing is designed so that people get the Alinker. We ship the Alinker at the moment. The crowdfunding campaign is completed. We build a whole community around it, and Selma was like, this is amazing. And so her involvement helped this whole crowdfunding campaign platform that we have integrated completely go through the roof. Today, just today, campaign 182 completed. Awesome. 182 people that could never afford the Alinker but have the Alinker, and it builds community, which is actually a bigger benefit of the whole campaigns than the individual Alinkers even.
Well, Bee, I've really enjoyed our time here today. Okay, and I want to thank you for your contributions to our show. Businesses that start from a social cause can be dynamic. Add passion to a strong belief system, and there's no limits on what can be accomplished. As a wealth advisor, it's refreshing to meet an entrepreneur driven by their passion to remove isolation and provide access to community. While not everyone will have access to angel investors, an unwavering belief in your business idea is critical to deflect the naysayers. Early business owners often enjoy the creative side of their businesses, but can be stifled by the actual logistics of running the business. I often recommend surrounding yourself with great people and strong professional advisors. They can help keep the focus and ensure that some of the exciting yet necessary operational elements of running the business aren't overlooked. To get more from those relationships, get a dialogue going. Ask what more you can learn. And if they can offer a hand in doing so, this will better prepare you as your business continues to grow. Now, I wish we had more time. Once again, I want to thank BE Alink, Toni Desrosiers, and Brianne Miller for sharing their thoughts on money matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more, worry less.